I just love breakfast. Hey friends, and welcome back. This week I'm sharing 5 breakfast ideas to make at home if you are wanting to try out something new or if you want to start including more plant-based meals into your routine. We'll be making a breakfast-friendly banana bread, some rice porridge, a creamy tofu scramble, some chocolate cornflake jars, and lastly some chai spiced porridge. Okay, I think I'm just gonna stop talking. Let's just get into it. Alright, we're starting with an absolute banger, if I may say so myself, because we're starting by baking some banana bread. Now, when I first saw the idea for a breakfast banana bread online, I was hooked because I do love baked goods, and served with fruit and yogurt in the morning, you've got yourself a balanced meal. Full transparency here, this is not my recipe, it's by a creator called Sophie the Nutritionist on Instagram. I will leave both her tag and the recipe in the caption below. The batter is honestly super quick to make, with bananas, applesauce, syrup, spices, oats and flour, and I mix it all together until just combined. Like with any baked good, don't overmix the batter to make sure it stays fluffy. I then get this into a loaf pan to bake for around 55 minutes at 180 Celsius. And this loaf is great for meal prep because whenever you need a quick breakfast or even just a snack, you can take a slice from the freezer, toast it up, and you have a breakfast in less than 5 minutes. So that's what I did here as well. I had made the loaf the day prior to filming the breakfast and then heated it up to have in the morning. When it came to serving, I added some thick soy yogurt into my bowl, which is my favorite kind of yogurt, topped with a couple of thick slices of the warm banana bread, some fresh raspberries that I splurged on, although a compote made from frozen berries would work great as well, a generous drizzle of nut butter, some hemp seeds, and then of course a sprinkle of salt to finish for that sweet and salty bite. I loved every single bite of this bowl, and hopefully you will too. The leftovers of the loaf I just put in the freezer in an airtight bag to have on hand for a busy morning or as a snack. Moving on to the next breakfast, very much inspired by a cafe in Copenhagen that I keep seeing on my Instagram For You page. It's comforting, hearty and indulgent and perfect for this colder weather here in Germany. To make this, I'm using short grain rice like arborio rice, as well as plant-based milk, water and a pinch of salt. I just cook this like regular porridge. It just takes a bit longer than if you were using oats, for instance. Once it's around 90% cooked like this, I actually turn off the heat and put the lid on to let the rice steam for a few minutes, which heavily improves the texture. In the meantime, I'm just quickly heating up some frozen blueberries with a touch of vanilla for topping the rice porridge. And then to assemble, I add the compote on top of that thick and creamy porridge. Oh, this looks so good already. Then, heavily inspired by that Copenhagen cafe, I add a knob of butter which just melts into the rice and gets so delicious. I'm also making a quick cinnamon sugar by combining light brown sugar, cinnamon and a bit of cardamom in a small bowl, and then sprinkling this all over the top, followed by a non-negotiable pinch of salt to finish. When I first tested this recipe a few weeks ago, I was literally so shocked how good this tasted because it was so easy to make but so flavorful. Butter and the sugar just melt into the rice and the berries. This is honestly the perfect recipe for a cozy winter day at home. For the one and only savory breakfast in this video, I wanted to make some tofu scramble, but quite differently to how I usually make it. You'll see why in a bit. If you are or were a fan of creamy scrambled eggs, this one is definitely a must try. To start, I sauteed a clove of garlic in vegan butter until golden, and then I added in some silken tofu that I had cut into cubes like so. This makes the scramble super creamy. I then went in with a bunch of spices like turmeric, paprika, and scrambled egg seasoning, and then of course some salt and pepper. For binding and for even more creaminess, I added a spoonful each of nutritional yeast and tahini and stirred this all together until all of the tofu was coated in the spices. You can add a little bit of plant-based milk if you want it even creamier. Of course, I served the scramble on some fresh bread with whole grain mustard, some tomato slices, and sprinkled some chives and black pepper on top. I feel like these toppings always go so well with a scramble. As I was eating this, I was honestly shocked by the texture because it is so similar to eggs. You can also add things like spinach or bell pepper into the tofu to add some veggies if you feel inclined. I just love breakfast. So good. These chocolate-coated cornflake jars are a great breakfast if you have a small appetite in the morning or a morning snack if you're like me. So I'm starting by prepping the jars with a layer of defrosted blueberries, but you can just use whatever fruit you like or have on hand. I think in the summer some peaches or nectarines would be really nice with this. Then I'm adding a layer of unsweetened soy yogurt before moving over to the stove to make the cornflake topping. To build a double boiler, just add water to a small pot and put a heat-proof bowl on top. And into this bowl you're gonna add the dark chocolate and a bit of coconut oil, which helps the chocolate melt a bit better. Turn the heat up and stir this until everything is melted together, which takes about 2 minutes. Then turn the heat off and add the cornflakes and mix it well until every last cornflake is coated in chocolate. Remove the bowl from the heat and back to the jars. I ended up adding a layer of plain cornflakes as well. The cornflakes I used here were lightly sweetened, and then I divided the chocolate-coated cornflakes evenly between the two jars. I find the mix of both plain and chocolatey cornflakes to be quite delicious, but of course you can also just do the chocolatey ones. Lastly, I sprinkle a bit of flaky salt on top and set this in a cool place like the fridge or my freezing balcony for a few minutes to set. Once the chocolate has cooled completely, it creates this sort of chocolate shell, which I will be destroying in just a second. Yeah, use a bigger jar than me. No matter the mess though, this is just such a fun way to get the day started, and of course, very yummy. Last, but very much not least, we're making some chai-spiced porridge with tahini. I came up with this a few weeks ago because I wanted to use up a bunch of chai tea bags from the cupboard, and I have made this quite a lot since then. So to my trusty small pot, I added in the chai tea bag, water and soy milk, and let this simmer for around 5 minutes for the liquid to soak up all of that flavor before removing the tea bag and adding in my small cut oats, a pinch of salt, and letting this cook for another 5 minutes until thickened and creamy. I personally like to add some flax seeds into my porridge after cooking to get those omega-3s in the morning, and a bit of soy yogurt to add a nice creaminess and some protein too. But those two are of course completely optional. So then it was time to serve, and I added the thick porridge into a bowl, topping with a generous drizzle of tahini, which goes so well with the chai flavors, as well as some thin apple slices for garnish, and you guessed it, a sprinkle of flaky salt to finish, because how could I not? I recently saw a post that said flaky salt belongs on everything, and I agree. Anyways, for a thick porridge like this, a drizzle of extra soy milk goes a long way, so I also did that. And this is the kind of meal that doesn't look like much or very special, but the combination of chai and tahini brings so much to this dish. It's very little effort for a lot of flavor. So that was 5 breakfast ideas to switch up your current rotation. If you decide to make any of the recipes, feel free to let me know which one you're gonna make in the comments, or you can send me a photo over on Instagram. I think that is it from me today. I'll see you soon.